Hello and welcome to another V's Cards video. My name is Veronika Cuic and I'm an independent stamping up demonstrator in Australia. And in this video I'm going to show you two very fun, easy and quick fun folds for a flower pot card. Okay, let's get started. I'm basing my first design on a blast from the past. So I made this roughly 12 years ago. And I'm going to change it up and modernise it using stamping products only. Two main modifications. One is corner rounding the base of the pull-out section of the card. And I've used a ribbon tag so it's easy to pull out. I tried to use a colour ribbon that would slightly blend but still be obvious for you to pick up and use to pull out the card. So keep an envelope handy so that you can do a quick check as you're fitting through and adding to the flower pot. I was encouraged by Stephanie Luhrmann from Splits Ghost Stampers, and her video was produced 14 years ago. I'll have the link in the description below. So here are the measurements, and what you're actually doing is folding the score lines up and over to craft the flower pot shape, and then you're going to tuck in the ribbon and tie a knot once you've adhered the ribbon to the card using mini glue dots. I've also tied a double knot to the front, and I have used sponge dobber to give the flower pot some texture and dimension. So there are the tips for this card number one, but for card number two I'm going to talk you through the steps and demonstrate at the same time. I would say this floral or flower pot fun fold is even easier than the first, and here are the measurements and how it should look like as the card base. You can literally make 3 of the card bases in the one A4 size sheet. You will need an extra 4 by 1 inch to create the top layer of the pot as well. I'm trimming off 1/4 inch of that strip so that there's 8 inches, and I'm scoring at 4 inch in the centre of it. I fold the score line and then I add a 1 inch score line at the top on one end, which is going to be the front of the card base. This score line will help me measure when I do an angle on the bottom of the card to make a pot looking shape. Instead of a score line, you could just pencil in the mark and then rub it out when you're finished. I have marked 1/2 inch on either end of the base of that card front, and this is the point where I'm going to line it up onto my paper trimmer and meet it up with a score line at the top. So once I cut the front angles, I need to cut the back of that card as well. And you can use scissors, but I go in and measure it from the front and cut away using my trimmer. At least I know I'll get a much straighter cut than using scissors. Here I am cutting the rim of the flower pot, which is 1 by 4 inches. And I'm going to adhere that rim to the front using dimensionals, only 3, spacing it out and making sure that they are positioned on the base of that line. I've got my score line as a guide where to put the dimensionals. At this point, I would ask you to use your mini glue dots to adhere the ribbon onto the centre part of that rim before you adhere it to the card front. So I've forgotten to do that part, but you will get to see me demonstrate how to put the rim onto the flower pot. Again, do the ribbon first and then do this part. After I adhere the strip, I realise that I haven't really adhered it flush to the top of that vase, so I peel it off again and reposition it one more time. I do end up tearing a little bit of that card base off, and I need to do some tidying, so I do that as well using tweezers. With the camera in the way of my head, I'm unable to come in over and measure properly, but I do find that facing it upside down does give you a better chance of lining up properly. So try that if you want to avoid my mistake. Now you'll see the ribbon suddenly appears and I'm up to building the card top with the flowers, but first I need a special base. And to create the base, I use the largest of my circle dies to make a dome or crescent. And I'm going to adhere that using some liquid glue and adhering it into the inside lip of the flower pot. For inspiration of the flower positioning, I pull out my card number 1 and I'm using it as a motivation to work out how I'm going to set everything up. I'm not going to show you in detail how I've cut or made up the flowers. I've done that in my previous video and I'll put a link in the description below of that one as well. I've cut out and edited a lot of this part of building the flower arrangement simply because you've already seen me do such a thing in my previous video. By far, this is the part where it's probably the longest or the most difficult in crafting the card, not the actual fun fold, but the building of the flowers and arranging of it to make that perfect card. I love these new floral dies, and towards the end of the video I'll show you another card similar to this one using the pansy patch dies, which is also another great favourite. I'm now up to adding the sentiment. I did use a retired die set, but I've got an alternative in the product list and I'll have the links to both the fun fold cards in the description below. What you don't see in this video is I do add some gold accents with the leaves as well. And here's a look at the same fun fold using the pansy patch dies. I hope you like them. Thanks so much for watching. Take care and happy crafting, and see you in the next video.